Football Unknown.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to a new episode of Football Unknown Podcast. I am your host, Kirill Rosary. If you're new to the channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button, like the video if you like it. And today we have a special guest, man.
What's up, everyone? Isaiah Reid.
Yep. So before we start the podcast, Isaiah, give everyone a brief intro about yourself, like where you're from, your age, and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I'm Isaiah Reid. I'm from Rock Hill, South Carolina. I'm 21, and yeah.
Hey everyone, before we kick off this week's episode, I would like to announce that Football Unknown is now officially sponsored by New Tempo, a brand new apparel company that is dedicated to improving the accessibility of the beautiful game to all here in the US. They have just launched their all-performance tee for both men and women, and I think they're beautiful to train in. I personally like their stretchability, their elastic recovery, and their resistance. New Tempo is donating 10% of all earnings to the U.S. Soccer Foundation that provides children who live in underserved communities, enabling them to thrive in an active and healthy lifestyle through soccer. So make sure to check them out before the shirts run out. And be sure to use the code UNKNOWN to get $5 off your order while supplies last. Now let's hop back into it. We have a lot to talk about today, man. And I think, bro, I remember my senior year of high school, probably maybe even my junior year of high school, the only reason why I followed Clemson was because of you. And man, fast forward 2-3 years later, and we're sitting down talking to each other, man. This is a dream right now. So let's start this, man. When did you fall in love with the game of soccer?
I think I fell in love with the game when I was 6 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So my biggest influence was probably my older brother, Josh.
Okay.
He's 5 years older than me,
Yep.
and I started playing soccer when I was 2, actually.
Wow.
But I started playing competitively when I was 6.
Okay.
And so me getting to go to his, travel soccer games when I was 4 and 5, I just loved the sport so much. And then when I finally got to play competitively when I was 6,
Mm-hmm.
I just fell in love with it.
Really?
Yeah.
So when you were 6, what club did you play for? Was it a travel or rec? What was it?
Yeah, so it was my local club, Discovery Soccer Club in Rock Hill. It
Mm-hmm.
was a travel team. They're now called Charlotte Independence.
Okay.
But yeah, that's who I played for from 6 to age 14.
Nice.
Yeah.
And how was it being introduced to the game? Right, 'cause at that age, you're still young, you're still learning the rules and stuff like that. So how was that experience for you?
It was a really good experience. Like I said before, my brother was my biggest influence into getting into the game.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much everything that I knew and everything that I taught really was stemmed from my brother.
Mm-hmm.
So he was a huge influence for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how many? And then you spent what, 6, 7, 8, 9? Okay, so you spent a good amount of years over
Yeah.
there. So after that, what's the next step?
So after I was at Discoveries for about 8 years,
Okay.
my 8th grade year, I went to Charlotte Soccer Academy, and I went
Okay.
to go play in their developmental academy program.
Mm-hmm.
And for people who may not know what that is, DA is pretty much it was the highest level of youth soccer at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's kind of split in between MLS Next and ECNL.
Yep.
But at the time, DA was that league that had MLS academies and other top non-MLS clubs.
Uh-huh.
And so I moved there for better opportunities to get D1 looks, youth
Yep.
national team
Mm-hmm.
looks. And so I was there from 8th grade until I graduated high school.
Okay, and how far was it from where you lived?
My 8th grade year, it was an hour
Okay.
drive up there.
Oh,
So
man.
not too bad, but
Yeah.
not ideal.
Mhm.
But they ended up building a brand new complex by the time I was a sophomore, junior. So
So it was closer to you.
it was
at that point?
closer. It was 25 minutes, so it wasn't bad.
Yep. So how did you end up playing for them? What did they see you, or did you have to try out or something like that?
Yeah, so I had to try out. So when the DA really started getting popular for my age group, my parents and I saw it as an opportunity for
Yep,
me
absolutely.
to get better opportunities.
Yep.
And so I had to go to a tryout. And it was honestly pretty nerve-wracking because I was making a big step from being, a big fish in a little pond, going to, a bigger club. So it was definitely pretty nerve-wracking.
What was the difference, right? So playing for your travel team, and then now playing for DA, because at the time, like you said, it was one of the, it's an academy,
Yeah.
right? So how was the difference? What was the difference you found?
I think the difference was the speed of play and the standard and the level.
Yep.
Everything was at a higher level. From the coaching, the players.
Yeah.
You were in constant competition for spots. Everything was just more cutthroat. When
Yeah.
you're at your local club, it's a little more comfortable. and you can kind of do stuff and do your own
get
thing.
used to it. And
Yeah, but when you went to an academy, it's like
you're always on your toes.
always on your toes. You're grinding. So yeah.
And then what position? Because we talked about this in the car, and I could not believe. So like, what position were you playing, man? Back at that time.
So before I went to Charlotte Soccer Academy, I was actually playing cam.
Oh, okay.
But
Damn.
a lot of people play cam, at their local clubs,
and,
just for the fun. But I started off my career pretty much as a left mid, left wing.
Okay.
Played cam my last year at my club. Then I went to Charlotte Soccer Academy, and I was playing left wing and cam. I started the first game of the season as a cam for the academy team. I was like, all right, I'll be playing cam. Moved out to left wing, and so at the end of the season, they were trying to look at me for youth national team looks. And the youth national team scout was pretty much like, if you want to shout, you're going to have to start playing left back.
Really?
Pretty much. They pretty much didn't see me as good enough as a left winger. So I started to try and adapt my game. And so going into my freshman year, that's when I really started playing left back at Charlotte, and pretty much played there the whole season, rotate a little bit between left back and left wing, but primarily left back. And that's when I did get a call up to a U16 national team futures camp, and I played left back there.
Nice.
It was a very humbling experience.
Yep.
First time playing left back against some real competition. Some of those guys were smoking me. I'll be the first to admit, but it was a good learning experience. Played left back pretty much from there. And then my senior year, I played left wing back because we played a 3-5-2.
Yep.
I was recruited. 3-5-2. Wing back, bro. Ton of fitness, ton of running.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. But then I was recruited by Clemson pretty much as a left back.
Really?
And played there my first 2 seasons. And then I ended up moving up to left wing. And so I played winger pretty much my whole time at Clemson. So
let's check back and let's try to break this down, right? Because a lot of players, man, even when they hear advice from coaches or whatever, maybe you should move on to this position, move on to this position. They're always stubborn and they don't really want to. How was it for you, like getting that advice from one of those top coaches, right? Your youth national team coach, and like telling you, hey man, you should probably try playing left back. Like how did you process that, and how were you able to be like, okay, I get it. Let me try and work my game to be more of a left back.
Yeah, I think it all kind of goes down to your humility as a player and your coachability. I think those are 2 things that are qualities that I would tell a lot of youth players that you need to have. So I think those are 2 of my biggest assets, because being humble enough to know that there's ways for you to get better, and you got to be able to take constructive criticism for you to be able to get better. And I think that really helped me in the process and growing my versatility, because the mindset that I had, and I feel like a lot of ballers should have, is to be on the field.
Absolutely.
So it doesn't matter if I'm playing cam, left wing, left back, playing striker in the national championship. It don't matter.
It doesn't matter.
You need to be on the field, and you need to be able to adapt and, innovate and, get better in whatever position you're asked of. So I think having that mentality of, having that humility and coachability really helped me to adapt to whatever position.
Nice. And like, what are some things that you had to work on, right? Because your whole life, man, you're attacker, right? You're playing cam, you're playing on the wing. What are some things that you realize that you had to change in order to be a successful wing back?
Yeah, and first off, I'd probably say 1v1 defending.
Okay.
If you're a wing back, fullback, you have to be good 1v1 defending. A lot of times, especially you're going up against tricky wingers, especially, I would know playing winger, you have to be good 1v1 defending. Not only 1v1 defending, but your positioning. Being able to see the ball and the man at the same time, talking with your center backs. It's tough. And like I said before, that first U16 camp that I was at, it was definitely an awakening. Because from a 1v1 defending standpoint, I was going up against wingers who were the best wingers in the nation, essentially.
Absolutely.
And so it was definitely a learning experience. So I think that right there is 1v1 defending is probably one of the biggest things I had to adjust to.
Okay. And then, so how did, the youth national team even get to see you, right? Like even the very first time, when you had to talk with the coach, how did that happen?
Yeah, so that's honestly why I give a lot of credit to Developmental Academy, because there's different youth national team scouts that come to certain games.
Mm-hmm.
So you're always being scouted and evaluated by youth national team coaches.
Okay.
So about like every other 5 games, you would probably have like a technical director of the U.S. national team come to your games, and they're constantly scouting players.
Nice.
So that's what I thought was dope about the DA. Like, it was high competition.
Absolutely.
But there was national team scouts coming to about 30% of your
Yep,
games.
it's exposure. Love
Exactly.
exposure. Yep.
And then there was also like these regional youth national team camps.
Okay.
That, you know, they'd have them in Carolina, Virginia. They're a little bit more regional, so you got looks there as well. But, you know, coaches were constantly looking.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah.
And how was the camp environment, right? Because, right, you're playing for an academy, but then when you go to these camps, it's like so many players, limited time to, like, you know, show what you got, right? You have a day or two max. Like, how is that environment for people wondering?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty cutthroat, especially starting off, because you're coming from a certain environment, especially when you come from a non-MLS academy. I think it can be a huge adjustment. But yeah, it's pretty cutthroat. But after the first 2 days, once you start getting acclimated, you just got to have fun with it. You know, at the end of the day, you got to have fun with it.
Exactly.
And it's easier when you start making friends and making connections with a lot of the other guys there.
Yep.
You start getting more comfortable and things like that. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely cutthroat. It's a hard environment, and you know, you got to have a really strong mentality to be able to thrive in there.
Yep.
So.
And how long was it? Like, was it 2 days, 3 days? Was it a week?
I think it was maybe 4
days?
5 days. So it was like a week.
Okay.
But yeah.
All right. And then so after the first time the coach came to see you, and then so you went back, right? Readjusted your game. The second time when you got the call up, how did you feel, man? How did you feel when you got the U16?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so it was a really good feeling because, you know, the first time that, you know, the U.S. national team scout saying, you know, you're maybe not good enough as a left wing, or I'm not good enough as a left wing.
Yep.
I got to do more.
Yep.
And so I kind of took that as, all right, well, I got to be better.
Absolutely.
Simple as that.
Yep.
And as a left back, I trained and I worked hard, and, you know, I was my end product, my crossing as well, and the attacking side of the ball got a lot better.
Yep.
And I ended off my freshman year that season with like 8 goals and 4 assists as a left back.
Wow, that's good.
And so that's after. Then I got the call up right after that.
Yep.
So it was a nice testament to you know, what I've been working on. But after the camp, like I said before, it was a little bit rough for me. I'm not gonna lie, but you know, I took it as a learning experience. But I didn't get another youth national team call up after that.
Yep.
So you know, for me, from a mental standpoint, it's yes, I've improved as a left back, but just like the first time, I got to get better.
You gotta get better. Absolutely.
I got to get better. And
Yep.
so I did get better, and to the point where I was able to get recruited by Clemson. So,
Nice.
you know, it came around that way.
Yep. And how long after that camp did you get that recruitment from Clemson?
So it happened extremely fast. So after my freshman year, it was the summer. I think it was in June. I got the national team call up. I think it was in May.
Okay.
And I went to the Clemson ID camp in June.
Okay.
And so I went there as a freshman. After my freshman year, I was like, I mean, like, I'm just going for fun.
Exactly,
Nothing's
yeah.
going to come out of it. I'm just going to go just for the banter, you know. And
Freshman year.
Freshman year.
Okay.
And at Clemson, the way they do their ID camp, this is what I promote to a lot of young players who want to play at Clemson, is that in their ID camps, they have all-star games. And they have 3 all-star games throughout the camp.
Okay.
And in those all-star games, the top players of the camp will play against the Clemson players.
Oh.
Yeah, and so
okay.
the coaches of Clemson, they're
Yep.
literally actively watching players from the All-Star game to see who they can bring
Yep.
into the team.
And can they fit the intensity, right? Okay.
Exactly. And so I performed very well in the All-Star games, and you know, after that, ended up going on a visit at the start of my sophomore year. And I'm from Rock Hill, South Carolina, so I'm a local guy, and I was just kind of starting my recruiting process. I didn't know, but
Wow.
being at Clemson, I've always wanted to be at Clemson, and they ended up offering me, and I committed my sophomore year.
Wow, your sophomore year of high school.
Sophomore year. There wasn't anywhere else that I wanted to go, so when they offered me, I was like, all right, yeah, I'm gonna take it.
And how did it feel? How did it feel? How did the family take it? Right, like sophomore year of high school, man, and first offer was Clemson, one of the biggest programs in the U.S. Man, how did they feel after that?
It was a humbling experience, because after a lot of the adversity that I was going through, with the national team and stuff like that,
Absolutely.
and really moving to CSA to develop as a player, seeing that I got an offer from a top D1 program. It was amazing.
Absolutely.
And me being from South Carolina, I think it meant a lot more. Just because, like, that's like, I'm kind of like a hometown guy.
Exactly.
The family was super proud. All of my friends, Rock Hill, South Carolina, growing up, it wasn't a very big area for soccer.
Okay.
But one thing that people from Rock Hill do know is about Clemson. And so when I committed to
absolutely.
Clemson, all the people in my area, the whole community, it was like, okay, this dude's actually a big deal.
Exactly.
Because before, I was doing my thing. A lot of my friends played football and basketball. They didn't know about soccer. But it's like, you
exactly.
playing soccer, you're good, but, whatever.
Yeah, whatever, yeah.
But when I committed to Clemson, it was a huge deal.
Sophomore year, too.
Sophomore year. So it was a really humbling experience. So I definitely took it all in. So it was great.
So what, do you guys, like, keep in touch, like the last 2 years of your high school?
Yeah, pretty
how did
much. Yeah, so it was a verbal commitment, and so
Okay.
we would be on phone calls, just keep in touch until my junior year, and then my senior year, I was able to sign. So
Nice.
yeah,
Okay, so now moving into Clemson, huge fan base.
Yeah.
We all know that. Big program.
yeah.
How did it feel getting into that program and adjusting to everything?
Yeah, so getting there, that was the fun part, but being there initially, it was tough.
Okay.
I think my freshman season was probably one of the hardest seasons that I've had to deal with in my life as a footballer.
Really? Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so kind of the similar thing that I said before, going from Discoveries to CSA in their DA program.
Yeah.
It was on a much larger scale. Going to a top D1 program.
Absolutely.
Performance was dipping. A lot of people say the freshman curve. Because you start really hot, and then throughout the season it kind of just dips. And one thing for me that I've never dealt with really before in my whole life as a footballer was a lack of confidence.
Okay.
My confidence was completely shot my freshman year.
Why? What do you think it was?
It had to do with just going into an environment where I was experiencing real adversity. I think in terms of my whole life as a footballer, being at Discoveries, I was kind of the guy.
Okay.
Being at Charlotte, I had a little adversity, in the beginning, but then after a few years, I was kind of the guy there. Not too much. But going to Clemson, it was real adversity.
Yep.
I'm into sessions with top quality players. Most of the team from that 2019 team, I think they're all pro now. So I'm going in to
with like top players in the country at that time, man.
They're all pro now.
Yep.
And so I'm going in, I'm making a mistake, and the level is at a level I've never played at before. And everything kind of came in. The conditioning, the fitness was at a higher level. The technical abilities that you need to have was at a higher level. The tactical, the physical, everything is just at a higher level. And it took me a while to adjust.
Yeah.
And, I will say that sometimes, when something wouldn't go my way, then something else would happen. I would take a bad touch, and then a bunch of things were happening. And then I remember I got my first start for Clemson against USC Upstate.
Okay, and it was your freshman year, true?
My freshman year, so I got to start,
What position?
Left
back still, right?
So
okay.
Pretty good, and then I kind of switched off on one play, and then I turned over a pass.
Yeah.
Then I turned over another pass, and then things
started falling from there.
Started going from bad to worse, and
Yep.
I think from a mental standpoint, I was just mentally too weak. Simple as that. I'll be the first to say it. From a mental standpoint, I just wasn't where I needed to be to be at a top D1 program. My confidence was low, and I didn't really play much the rest of the season. I think I played a total of 8 games the whole season.
Yep.
And it was a huge adjustment. And after that season, I came back second semester freshman year, and COVID ended up happening.
Oh, so that was the season before COVID.
Yeah, that was the season right before COVID.
Okay.
And COVID actually is what helped me transform into a completely different player.
Okay.
So I'm extremely thankful for that. I ended up getting a mentor who really helped me to switch my game from the mental side of things. And from being such an unconfident player with, lack of confidence, a weak mentality, I was able to switch everything during that COVID time.
Nice.
And like I've told a lot of young footballers already, I want to be able to challenge them to be better. And I had to recognize that what I was doing at Clemson wasn't enough to be at the level and to achieve the dreams that I wanted to achieve.
Absolutely.
And so fitness, started doing more running. Technical stuff, started training more on my own. Technical, I started watching the game, not just watching football, but watching football with a critical eye, seeing what players are doing off the ball as well as on the ball, their different movements, all that type of stuff, and then mental training. You know, watching different videos, working with my mentor, and just improving my game. And I remember I came back that sophomore summer, I was fit, you know, technically I was at a higher level.
Wow.
Tactically, you know, I was starting to really see the game in a different way. And I tell a lot of players this: once the confidence comes and once the tactical awareness starts to come, the game starts to slow down. It's not 100 miles an hour anymore. Everything's not spinning. The game slows down. You become a lot more comfortable. And that's how it was my sophomore year. Started getting a little bit more playing time. Started featuring a little bit at left wing as well because, you know, the coach saw my improvement, so he was trying to get me on the field. Our left back was solid, but he was like, you know, Isaiah, he's really showing improvement. Let's get him on the field as a left winger. And so I was getting more minutes and more minutes. We ended up winning the ACC championship that year. And I was able to contribute to that. And then after that fall, we had both of our wingers go pro. So Kamarni Smith, amazing player. He went pro, drafted to DC United. And Grayson Barber, our other winger, amazing player as well. He was signed homegrown to Sporting Kansas City.
Shout out to these guys.
Yeah, shout out to them as well as Robbie Robinson. He's probably one of the best strikers I've ever played with. He got the Mac Herman Trophy in that 2019 season, but the whole front line was gone. And so after being a left back, I had featured at left wing, and so coach was like, all right,
hey man,
here's your chance.
Here's your chance.
And so, you know, I tell a lot of people, whenever you're going through that grind, it's about keeping a strong mentality because you got to be prepared for any blessings that come your way.
Absolutely.
And so that's what I was doing that whole COVID and sophomore season, just staying prepared and staying ready for any opportunities. And so that spring season, you know, I was ready. That's when I really started coming into that position.
Absolutely.
First game of the season, scored a goal and an assist in my debut at left wing against Syracuse. And from that moment on, you know, I started becoming a left winger. And sophomore season, still second semester, still had to grow as a player. Still wasn't, you know, near the player that I was near the end of my college career. But again, you know, from a mental standpoint, you know, I got the position, but it's about innovating from a position of strength.
Absolutely.
So now that I'm in that starting position, how can I get better as a starter? And so I took that summer to really improve my game from a technical standpoint. How can I improve as a winger? And I came back that junior year, and that was my breakout year.
So before we get into that, right? Coming, you know, your sophomore year and then your junior year, do you see that the freshmen coming into Clemson, right? And because, you know, the program's so big and, you know, they expect a lot from you, do you think that that happens to a good number of freshmen coming in, or do you think it was just like it's like rare?
I think that happens. What happens to a lot of freshmen who go into college their freshman year is, I think their expectations kind of get the best of them. And I talk to a lot of players that I mentor personally why goal setting is so important. Because I went into Clemson my freshman year as pretty much any other freshman. All right, you know, I'm going to make a statement. You know, I want to be all ACC freshman. I want to, you know, do this. I'm going to come and take your spot and all this. And so my goals were more outcome based. It was about how many minutes am I going to play? How many stats am I going to add up? And when stuff becomes more outcome based and that stuff doesn't come off, then that's when you start shutting down. So because my goals were to, you know, be this all ACC freshman and play this amount of minutes, when I wasn't playing minutes, when I wasn't performing well, I started dipping. So I think what happens to a lot of freshmen is they come in with these high expectations of trying to do, you know, a lot instead of focusing on the things that they can control. And that's what it's about, focusing on how they can be in pursuit of reaching their full potential while they're in college. You got 4 years, or 2 if you decide to leave early. But what you do in those years, it's about controlling what you can control and trying to maximize every opportunity to reach that full potential. Step by step, exactly. So my message to a lot of freshmen is don't make your goals around the outcome. Make it around the process. What are you going to do day to day as a player to become better? And as you can see, a lot of the freshmen who do excel their freshman year, they're just focusing on getting better. And if they do have a bad game, then okay.
Exactly. You brush it off.
Brush it off and they keep going.
Yep.
But as a freshman, it's about the process. It's a long process, and it's about grinding and focusing on what you can control. And I think it'll be a lot better transition than what I had, because it was pretty hard for me.
You said, make sure you have a good mentality, a strong mentality, right?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure there's people out here listening, like, wondering how do I keep a strong mentality when I gave up an own goal, or I did this, and I gave up a pass in the 90th minute and then they scored on us. Like, how am I supposed to, control my emotions and stay strong mentally?
I think the one thing that I learned is that the mental side of the game is so hard that it's very difficult to deal with on your own. And so for me, I'm a person who likes to be able to talk to people. So for all those people listening, my mentality now has gotten very strong, but it was not like that at all my freshman year, even my sophomore year.
Yep.
And like I said before, I looked to go to a mentor to really help me with my mentality, because it's easy to be like, oh, brush it off. It's about the process, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But like when you're really into it and you turn over 2 passes, your coach is yelling at you, your teammates are saying you're crap.
Man.
It's really hard.
It's hard. It's really hard, right?
It's hard. Even at the professional level, I'm still dealing with that stuff. But the thing that I would probably say is to confide in a mentor, or, maybe even your parents if they know the game. Having someone to talk to really help you increase that mental strength. Watching, different videos, doing mental strength exercises, anything that you can do to increase your mentality will benefit you, because it is very hard to deal with on your own.
Okay.
And talking to your teammates isn't always the best either, because like they always say, misery loves company. And that's something that I made a mistake of my freshman year. I wasn't playing, I wasn't doing well, and I would go and talk to some teammates. I'd be like, oh man, like he should have played me here, like like all this and that. And you start to, get in a group of other players who are also going through the same thing.
Exactly.
But you're not really getting better.
Yeah, it's just the same negative mindset, right?
Same negative mindset. You're surrounding yourself with negativity. So I think it's important that you really confide in a mentor who can bring that positive, energy around you and actually push you to get better.
Okay.
So I think that's what really helped me. I couldn't do it on my own.
Yep.
Turning over 2 passes, causing a goal, it's tough.
It's tough,
man. Like, especially at a high level. So I really went to my mentor, and I talked to my parents as well, and they really helped me to increase that mental strength, so that I've been able to build it since then.
Nice. So we've covered the mental aspect, right? Coming in the mental aspect. And then you said, during the summer of, before coming into your junior year, you were working more on the tactical side.
Yes.
What are some things that you did to improve yourself tactically during that summer?
Yeah, so probably one of the main things that I did before, and I kind of touched on it, was watching the game with a critical eye. And so this is one of the things that I got from one of my coaches at Clemson, and also from my mentor as well. When I was watching games, don't watch the game as a fan. Watch it as someone who's critiquing the game. I would have my notepad out, and I would pick 2 players in a game. So I would pick, at the time it was a left back. So I picked the left back from one team, and I'd pick the left back from the other team. I would write down the stuff that they did well. And, if it was playing on angles and breaking lines and having their first touch forward and nitpicking, not just about what they're doing on the ball, but how's their body shape before they receive the ball. Really watch the game with a critical eye, and then seeing the types of things that they could have done better. And from that moment on, when I really started to, it might sound corny, but I really started to become a student of the game. And started really learning and watching in a critical way that helped me to increase my tactical side of the game.
Absolutely.
And so that when I was able to take that from a professional game, a very high level, and you bring it to the college game, like I said before, it starts to slow down. You start seeing things that you didn't see before, and you start to become more mindful of certain tactical stuff, as well as the technical side as well. So I think that really helped me to really actually become a student of the game. And one more thing to add to that as well.
Absolutely.
Being a student of the game, the toughest part of being that is watching your own film, if you have that. There is nothing worse than playing a terrible game and then having to watch that film back over. Trust me. Like I'm even having to do it sometimes at the professional level as well. I'll have a crap training session, and I'll have to watch that over, and I'm just like, oh, why did I do that? But to be able to grow and to develop and to be a student of the game, you have to be able to do the tough stuff and watch that film. So I think watching professional games and watching your own film is gonna, come full circle.
And I think another thing before we talk about the blow up, the thing I like about it is you were able to understand and realize your flaws and work on them. A lot of players tend to ignore it and just brush it off. And I think that action is what I think made you into the player that you are today. Right? So then leading now to junior year. Talk to me about junior year now, man. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so junior year, that was probably one of the best years of my life.
Really?
That's probably the best year of my whole entire life. That was a great year. So I came back, did the work, the summer before my junior year, and the team, it was different. The feeling of the team was different. We had just lost to Marshall in the Sweet 16, the NCAA tournament the season before, the COVID season. And we had sixth-year and fifth-year guys coming back. So the energy around the team was just different altogether. Let alone just me as an individual. But everyone had a common purpose that, this year was business.
Exactly.
It's time. And so I came in ready. And I'll tell anyone this. I had 9 goals and 3 assists on the season. 7 of those goals were either crappy goals or just like tap-ins. I was a bit of a tap-in merchant, but that came from, that tactical awareness, that anticipation. And so, a lot of people will say like, those are just tap-ins, but it came from, me really watching the game and anticipating
and analyzing
different plays. And so, I was on the money. I remember the first 6 games of the season, I was the top goal scorer of the ACC, joint with, I think, DeAndre Kerr at the time. I had 6 goals in 6 games, and I think DeAndre Kerr also had 6 goals in 6 games.
Nice.
But then I ended up hitting a dip in my junior season, and I didn't score until the ACC tournament.
As a winger?
As a winger. I had a real dip in my performance. That was another thing that I had to overcome. Wasn't scoring goals, wasn't finishing my chances, things weren't coming off. I remember we played against FIU and Louisville. And I was playing very well, but I just wasn't scoring goals. And so from a mental standpoint, as a forward, like at the end of the day, your job is to score goals.
Just to score goals, And
it just wasn't coming off for me. Ended up scoring versus UNC Chapel Hill. So that, kind of got me back in the groove before the NCAA tournament. And going into it, I had 7 goals and 1 assist or 2 assists. And, at the time from a mental standpoint, I'm thinking like, I had to score goals. And that's why I was having a real dip in performance because my goals were starting to become more outcome based. And I started, all the hype was getting, 6 goals in 6 games.
The hype, the media hype.
And I wasn't really focused on what I needed to do in my process day to day. I stopped doing individual work and finishing because I got a little too complacent. I was finishing everything. Then when I stopped finishing everything, you
hit a roadblock again.
I hit a roadblock. So I had to get back to that, and I think it's perfectly fine because sometimes we're human. So sometimes that stuff happens, but it was the fact that I recognized that and I got back to the process. Started doing more finishing after training, started getting in on that. That's when I ended up scoring against Chapel Hill, started, performing a lot better. And then so the team started balling out in the NCAA tournament.
Wow. And then you had to adjust all that during the same season.
So then to add to the story, in the Louisville game, that was the last regular season game of the season, our striker, Mohamed Sayi, he tore his ACL. And our other striker, James Brighton, tore his ACL versus South Carolina. So both of our strikers had torn ACLs.
Right before the playoffs?
Right before the playoffs. And so as a team, it was the hardest thing because we had to readjust our formation.
Everything, man.
Everything. And we ended up going into a 4-3-2-1. And I was playing as the point, as the 9.
As a 1.
As the 9. And I had never played 9 before. I was a natural left back who moved to winger, and now I'm playing number 9.
So, and it's funny because when we're in the car, I was asking you, like, talking to you as if you were a striker, and you're like, nah, I'm not a striker. So you're playing 9. What happened?
So, like I said again, about that coachability, and the humility to get better, I had to adapt my game as a number 9 because then there's whole different a skill set that you need as a number 9.
Absolutely. A whole new awareness.
Exactly. And, I'm only 5'10". I'm not that tall, so I'm going up against like 6'3", D1 center backs.
Yeah.
So I had to increase my hold-up play. When I first started playing the first game of the NCAA tournament, it was against Denver. It was tough for me. I didn't see a lot of the ball because I'm playing number 9 as a 5'10" winger who's never played that before. So I'm having to adapt to playing with my back to goal a lot more.
Yep.
And so it was a grind. And so the game versus Denver, it was tough. Played that same formation again versus Kentucky. It was tough. Oregon State started adapting a little bit more.
Okay. Yep.
That was probably the toughest game of my college career.
Wow.
Toughest game of my college career. And that's probably the best college team that I played against personally.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
First of all, the team was insanely skilled. They had players like Sophie and Jeffall.
Yep.
Who I think he's now at Austin FC.
Yeah, Austin FC. Yeah, shout out.
They had another player as well, Tiki Sabaling, who's at FC Dallas. Just ballers on the team.
Yeah.
And they were just killing us for the first half. But the thing is about Clemson is that we were extremely mentally tough as a team.
Yep.
We were extremely resilient. So we stayed in the game. We hung in there.
Yep.
Some good heroics from George Marks, goalkeeper at Charlotte FC, absolute beast. The back line was super solid, and we were able to hang in the game, score a penalty late in the game. And
Wow.
we took them to PKs and beat them in PKs.
Yeah. So what game was that in the semis?
It was Elite 8.
Oh, it was the Elite 8. Okay.
Toughest game ever, not only because of the opposition, but we're flying all the way from South Carolina to Oregon.
Yeah.
So it's across
and you're
the country.
away, man.
Away. It's wet. It's rainy. They say, can you
shoot.
do it on a cold, rainy night in Stoke?
Mhm.
Can you do it on a cold, rainy night in Corvallis, Oregon?
Yep.
And so, we ended up doing it, but it was so tough, man. Credit to Oregon State. Absolute quality program. But we were able to stick in there, and we ended up getting the result.
Nice.
Yeah. And then moving into the semifinal game right before the national championship game where, I kind of really blew up. The Notre Dame game, I did not play well.
Oh, okay.
I was playing as the number 9 again.
Yep.
Notre Dame, they're very known for their physicality and their greediness.
Oh, yeah, I heard about that. Yep.
And I was playing up against center backs like Philip Quinton, who now play at Columbus Crew. He's like 6'5", and it was tough for me. Didn't see a lot of the ball. Some of the balls that I was getting, my touches weren't clean. I'll be the first to say it. I just wasn't having a good game. And I ended up getting taken out of the game, and coach put in Moha. Moha was still playing on a torn ACL.
Really?
He was still playing on a torn ACL to finish out the season.
Yep.
And I remember before the national championship game, the commentators were talking to Coach Noonan, and they were like, why'd you take out Reid? He's your healthy forward. And he was like, he just wasn't playing up to the standard. And so, like I said before, from a mentality standpoint, you got to be super strong.
You have to be, man.
It's so hard hearing that from your coach that
Absolutely.
he took me out and he played a player with a torn ACL because I just wasn't playing good enough. I just wasn't good enough. But instead of going back to that mental state that I was my freshman year, I took it as an opportunity to be like, you know what? I'm going to be better.
Exactly.
I'm going to be better. And then when I woke up that Sunday on December 12th for that national championship, it just felt different. I was coming different. I watched the Notre Dame game. I was seeing all the stuff that, I wasn't doing before. And I was like, I'm going to make a difference today.
Wow.
First thing, one of the first goals I had, it wasn't a score. It wasn't an assist. It was just my effort, my anticipation, and my attitude. First goal that I scored, the keeper ended up whiffing it. A lot of people say, it was luck and this and that. But if it wasn't for the anticipation and the effort to track down that ball, the goal would have never happened.
Yep.
Scored that goal. I was kind of feeling myself. And then the second goal, header into the top corner.
Man, that was beautiful.
It's a goal that I might not ever score again. But, anything can happen in a national championship.
Absolutely.
And so that I can really think that I can hang my hat on that performance because having such a bad game in the semifinals, I feel like a lot of players would be like, shying away from opportunities. But I'm really proud of myself in that aspect because I didn't shy away from the opportunity.
You stepped to the challenge.
And I stepped to the challenge.
Absolutely.
So, and ended off the junior career with national championship and offensive MVP of the game. So it was nice.
Yep. So after you scored that second goal and the final whistle blew, and you guys did it. How did it feel, man? What was the emotion finally overcoming these challenges, overcoming these obstacles, and you made it happen? How did it feel?
That's the best feeling of my life. It was amazing, more so because I did it with my brothers. I'll be the first one to say it. That national championship team was extremely special. Not even just the starting 11.
Yep.
All 30 guys a part of that team. That's probably what I'm most proud of. Not the 2 goals in the national championship, but the fact that I won it with that team, because the main core of the team was the same team that lost to Marshall in the Sweet 16.
Yep.
And we came back and we faced all this adversity. Our captain having to sit out because he tore his ACL.
Yep.
Moha also tearing his ACL. Bunch of different challenges, and through everything, we still
You guys stuck it out.
And I remember we were on the bus ride back, and we had a little after party at SO and in Clemson. I remember I started bawling, crying. That was the first time I started bawling, crying in front of anyone because the joy.
Absolutely.
That
You just
I felt,
overwhelmed, man.
I was overwhelmed. Because it was a dream come true. Being from South Carolina, and the South Carolina kid was the one that scored the 2 goals for Clemson to win.
Oh man.
It just all came full circle. When I started thinking about that, I was overwhelmed, and I started crying.
It's a dream story right here.
Yeah, it was crazy, man.
Yep. So after all of that, man, the ups and downs after the game, the joy after the game, the next morning, how did you feel when it was all said and done?
It was amazing. It was like it finally had settled down, and I really just stepped back and looked at it and was like, wow, that really just happened.
Absolutely.
That is something that 100% that I'm going to be telling a story to my kids. We literally just made history. And, when I'm done with my playing career and, we're going to be visiting Clemson, that 2021 national championship team will be remembered forever. And so thinking about that it's pretty dope. So, yeah.
Nice. So after that performance, we all know, some MLS teams started looking at you, man. So what was the next step for you after that iconic game?
So, kind of funny to say, there's actually more adversity to my story.
Okay.
So what a lot of people don't know, it definitely wasn't all sunshine and rainbows after the national championship. I had to go through more adversity. That's just sometimes God's plan for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Just got to deal with that stuff. But in April, I ended up having a sports hernia. And so I had to get surgery on my birthday, April 22nd.
Oh, no.
Had surgery on my birthday, and I was out pretty much the whole summer recovering and trying to get back for my senior season. A little bit of good news, I was elected captain, co-captain with Alvaro Gomez, amazing guy. Give him a little shout out. But I wasn't completely healthy come back my senior season. And after having such a great junior campaign and everything, my senior season was very lackluster and not a dream. Probably one of my toughest seasons as well after my freshman season. I came into the season not healthy, having to deal with my sports hernia, having to sit out of games, very inconsistent. I ended the season.
All the injuries, man.
Exactly. Ended the season on only 3 goals after having a good junior campaign. My sports hernia wasn't completely healed throughout the season.
Really?
And then when I started feeling better, playing against Syracuse, the next game after that, I ended up going up for a header, and Moha, he falls on top of me, ended up bruising my knee, my MCL, the side of my MCL.
Oh,
ended up bruising it. And so it wasn't terrible. I could still run on it. I could play on it, but I wasn't,
You weren't 100%.
I wasn't 100%. And so I was having to play not on 100%.
Yep.
And everything just wasn't going well. And I was like, I think I'm going to have to stay for a 5th year. I literally went from being on top of the world of college soccer to having the potential of staying for a 5th year and having to do it again because I just wasn't healthy. And I remember, again, I'll be the first to admit it, that, football is tough, man. It is not easy. And I remember after a training session, is after the team was even, going through a different performance, I was in my car and I just ended up crying because I was like, I'm going to have to stay for a 5th year. This isn't what I thought was going to happen. And one of my teammates, I'll give him a big shout out, Usman Silla.
Shout out.
Huge baller. Big thing's going to, be coming his way. He came to me when I was crying in my car after training. And he came to me. He's like, bro, it's going to be fine. God has a plan for you.
Amen.
Whatever you're going through right
Yep.
now, the sun is going to shine. It's not going to rain forever. And I really appreciate that talk from him, because I was in a really low point.
Yep.
I wasn't playing, I wasn't 100%. MLS scouts were, not really on my radar at all.
Wow.
So from the national championship, people weren't really looking at me.
Yeah.
It was tough.
Yep.
But I ended up getting healthy, ended up, starting to play well through the end of the season. And
You held strong, man, through the dip again.
Right,
and then you had the highest of the high at that point. And then a big
came all the way back down.
Yep.
And then I ended up getting an invite to the MLS College Combine. Nice. Praise be to God.
That was what, your senior year?
Senior year.
Yep.
And so that was where I really took my opportunity.
Thank God, man.
Then I moved back to left back at the MLS Combine, ironically enough. Played very well there. Got a lot of interest from a ton of MLS clubs. And at the Combine, you'll get interviewed by different teams.
Okay.
And so I got interviewed by 10 MLS teams. And,
Wow.
And Houston was one of them.
Yep.
And so
how does that whole interview thing go? Walk me through that.
Yeah, I mean, you play at the Combine in scrimmages, and then MLS clubs can, just take you in an interview process and interview you about, who you are as a player, what you can bring to the team and stuff like that. And so I had interview processes with, a decent bit of MLS clubs. So things were starting to look up, and, from that moment on, things started to trend upward. And so, it was a great feeling, because my college career was up and down and up and down, and it went really up, and then it went really down again. And then, then I was drafted to Houston. So it was nice, everything coming full circle.
Yep.
So.
And you were able to just hold strong mentally throughout that big dip. Shout out to your Usman Silla for that.
Yeah.
So when you signed that contract, how did it feel? How did your parents feel when you finally signed your first professional contract?
My parents just started crying, because that's just 21 years of hard work, of grind. And, credit to my parents for staying by me the whole way and, teaching me things that have allowed me to be great, such as, the humility and the mental strength, things that I can hang my hat on that have really helped me to excel my game and to get the success that I had. So it was just a really good moment. But for me, when I signed that contract, it wasn't like, oh yeah, it's all great. For me, it was it's work.
Yep.
It's time
Absolutely.
to get better.
Yep. It's time to move on to the next.
It's time to move on to the next, because it was an MLS Next Pro contract. It wasn't a first team contract, but it's my first pro contract. So, nonetheless, I'm going to take that. But for me, I'm always going to want more in my career.
Always.
And the one thing that I can truly hang my hat on and be proud of is that I'm not scared to find out how good I am. I think a lot of players, they sometimes can be scared about how good they can really be.
Yep.
And there's that fear of failure. There's that fear of
absolutely.
doing everything you can in your power and you just not being good enough. There's always going to be that fear of failure. But for me, I don't have that fear. I'm not afraid to find out how good I am. If I give my all at the professional level and I'm just not good enough, then so be it.
Exactly.
I'm going to do everything I can. I'm going to do extra training, do everything that I did at the college level. I'm going to even increase that. It's about what I'm challenging a lot of other young footballers, seeing how much better I can make myself. And if I can do that and focus on reaching my full potential, then I'm going to have a successful pro career.
Yep, absolutely.
So that's what I'm in the pursuit of right now at Houston Dynamo. Like I said before, it's tough. At the professional level, the different stages you go up, you have new challenges.
Yep, and then apparently coming from, Clemson to playing in the MLS Next is a big difference, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so, for me, through the ups and the downs, whether I have a good performance, whether I'm with the first team or not this week or that week, if I have a bad game, for me, mentally, it's always about managing the highs and lows. It's always about staying in the middle and continuously getting better every single day
gradually.
So that I can be in pursuit of reaching my full potential.
Exactly.
And that's what I tell a lot of players that I do mentorships with them. And so that's what I tell a lot of players, and that's what I tell myself. It's just about finding out how good you are. And in that pursuit, you just really got to stay mentally strong.
Absolutely.
So.
Nice. How's the MLS experience coming along? How is it getting used to the environment? Getting used to the industry, because it's an entirely different industry compared to college, right? So how's that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty dope. I'm really enjoying it. Like I said, my main purpose is to find out how good I am. And being in a professional environment is going to really test to see how good I can be.
Absolutely.
So it's nice. I'm with the MLS Next Pro team right now, Houston Dynamo 2. Really good program, great coaching staff. And the thing that I really like about Houston is that everything is all in-house and it's all together. So I was in preseason with the first team for like the first 2 weeks. And then I was with the second team. I've gotten in trainings with the first team. So you're moving up and down a lot.
Okay.
You're getting first team experience no matter what.
Nice.
You're always being pushed up, to be better with the first team. So I think it's really cool that you can get your minutes and develop with the second team, but also, always, being looked at for opportunities with the first team. So they're constantly looking to push players up. So I think that's pretty dope.
Nice. So before we close, I know you've been given some advice the entire pod, but is there any core advice you would like to give to a lot of American players that want to go to a good, college, that want to make it to the MLS, that want to go pro, even players in Europe that are listening that want to go pro or want to play? Any advice you want to give them? Final advice?
Yeah. I think the main advice that I would give is to run your own race. I found that in my career that when you focus on what you can control and you focus on the process, that it's going to be a lot better than focusing on other players. Focusing on what you can do as an individual and recognizing that there's ways for you to get better is only going to help you in your career. I see a lot, especially on social media and even just talking to people, a lot of people are like, oh, he's got this. He's got that. Oh, how is he on that team? He wasn't even that good, exactly. All this and that. And talking about certain players, those are their blessings.
Exactly.
Those are the blessings that God has for them. Amen. And God is going to have certain blessings for you as well. And it's about running your own race and recognizing that you have a plan.
Amen.
Trusting in that plan and doing everything in your power to invest in that plan.
Exactly.
And I think you're going to be in a better spot that way. Like I said before, there is going to be that opportunity of failure. You might do everything in your power and still not be good enough, but at the end of your career, at the end of the day, you can know that you gave your all and that there's not going to be any excuses and no regrets.
Exactly. At least you knew you did it. If you tried your best, you did it. And also remember to have faith. Have faith in God, right? Have faith in God that He'll help you through your obstacles and your challenges, and that He'll also be there through your ups. So, yeah. Well, I thank you so much for coming on the podcast, man. It was such a privilege to have you on. Dropping some knowledge on these boys real quick.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming on the podcast, man. It's been an honor having you on.